the way across southern Ontario and also Quebec. I'm meteorologist Rachel Modestino and joined with meteorologist Laura Power, and we're going to be looking at these storms as they continue to progress across these regions. Here's a look at the radar right now. We did see a few lightning strikes building up along Lake Huron shores, and also some pretty nice roll clouds by our storm hunter Mark Robinson, which we'll go to Mark now if he is available. Mark, tell us a little bit about what you did earlier this afternoon and your plans for the next hour or two.
Yeah, you can tell I'm actually not driving, so we're off at the side of the road so I can actually talk to you rather than driving along and letting go of the steering wheel. Not a good plan. Yeah, earlier it was quite interesting because we got close to one of the storms, and and I'm going to put giant quotes around the storms at this point because they were just heavy showers. But it's fired out, like it basically barfed out a whole bunch of cold air that came down and hit the ground and actually created a little bit of what we call a roll cloud. That sort of went over top of us, looked fantastic, and then dissipated very, very quickly. The temperature dropped, and I was watching this on the car temperature. It went from 30 degrees to 15 degrees in about 30 seconds. So I went from summer to early spring very, very quickly. Now, the big question is, was that the front or was that not the front? How are these storms going to move through southern Ontario? How is the front going to move through? So there's a whole bunch of questions, and trying to sort of show everybody what's going on, show you the amount of rain that we're dealing with, that's going to be tricky. Because it's, I'm watching the radar. I'm going to show you, you're watching the radar as well. I've got a radar sort of to take a look here and just sort of see what these storms are going to be doing, because these almost look like there's multiple lines of storms that will be coming through southern Ontario. So the big question in my mind is, do I race east to try and get ahead of this line, or do I sort of wait for that next line of storms? And that is what I have to figure out in the next 10, 15 minutes.
Well, we wish you the best of luck choosing which direction you decide to go in. We still have these storms, at least the first round of these storms, coming off of Huron shorelines, impacting from Owen Sound down to about Sarnia. Not in the most severe criteria just yet, but we'll slowly start to see these either boom up or fizzle out. But yeah, we're going to continue to keep you appraised of these changing details.
Yeah, there's lots of ingredients that are going to be incorporated in this setup, Laura. It's not really a straightforward forecast where we're talking about a cold front coming through and lots of thunderstorm energy, but we have a lot of different variables, so I think we should go through a few of them. Well, yes, we do have some thunderstorm energy. Some of that has been created on the surface. We felt that hot and muggy air, and in fact, Toronto hit our first 30-degree day of 2025, so I guess congratulations are in order for us, but we can really feel that air mass, and this is kind of showing us those regions that have some thunderstorm potential. So if you are located in any of these regions highlighted in yellow, that's where the thunderstorm energy is in place, and we're looking at some lightning strikes really building in the Goderich region and a little bit farther inland. Another thing that we wanted to talk about was the smoke, Laura.
Yeah, the smoke coming from the wildfires out west typically hinders instability in the atmosphere, so that could limit the strength of these storms. Now, I think we're sitting at about a 3 or 4 on the Air Quality Health Index scale. We're still seeing the hazy skies continue today. It was pretty bad over the last few days. We're kind of almost going to get a break in the next coming days, but as this frontal system kind of pushes northeastward, we're still going to see that smoke linger throughout southern Ontario for at least the rest of today, and then we might get a little bit of a break.
Yeah, it looks like maybe a bit more clearing once the front finally comes through, but the front is going to be taking its time getting through southern and eastern Ontario. It's not going to be something that really progresses across the region quite quickly. It's more so sliding, so that's bringing into play the threat for some heavy downpours over the same regions, and seeing some back-to-back thunderstorms one after another potentially, so some localized flooding may be in effect. But this is going to be a story more so for areas in south central Ontario, not so much the GTA, but if you are in the GTA and commuting northwards, or you're thinking, heck, it is such a nice day, I'm going to go out and hit some twilight rounds, you definitely want to be aware of these storms that are going to be continuing to move. So taking a look at what's been on deck and what's been developing. We can see some storms popping up in and around the Stratford region, which I'm sure our storm hunter Mark Robinson is keeping a close look at. Mark, are you seeing these storms kind of bubbling up in and around Stratford?
Yeah, I am seeing that, a little bit of the radar there, taking a quick look at that. I didn't know twilight golf was not was a thing. I'm not a golfer, so that is for anybody else, going out at twilight. Yeah, you might get a little bit wet depending on where you are. But for me, I'm trying to get into the storms. And it's always a little bit of a tricky endeavor, because you've got to balance two things. One, you're getting to those storms, making sure they don't get too far away from you too fast, and being able to actually see them. Southern Ontario, parts of Southern Ontario, lots and lots of trees. Other parts of Southern Ontario, lots and lots of fields. You can actually see the storms, get an idea of what's going on. Down here, I'm just I'm about halfway between London and Sarnia along the 402. Watching these ones go through, and you can see like the front on the windshield, lots of rain on the windshield right there. So just pull that out there. But not a lot of structure. It's one thing we often look for. I can tell that a storm is going to be strong or potentially damaging when you can see a bit of organization. And that organization usually shows up as structure. Looks dramatic, looks amazing. Not really seeing that, kind of seeing gray skies out there. Not too much else other than that at this point. Big thing with these storms, though, is they could form and then run along, just sort of running along that front. So we could have what we call training storms. So these storms could pop up, hit an area, move off to the northeast, and then another one form and hit that same area again and again and again. And that's kind of what we're watching for. So we'll see what happens, see how far these storms can move to the east, and whether we get multiple rounds of storms. And I am seeing a little bit of a hint of that on radar, but so far none of these storms have been particularly strong. So I'm going to put giant quotes around the word storm. Yeah, definitely, though, that temperature dropped so much in the middle of these storms. I was enjoying the 30 degrees, and now I'm back at 15. Not liking that.
For those of you who are not like Mark and enjoy the cool, he might have some good news in the next couple hours. However, we are seeing a little bit of a line of storms that's just about to hit St. Mary's and the Stratford area. Now again, these may not be completely in that severe criteria yet or at all, but you'll still see some pretty heavy downpours with these and likely some pretty strong wind gusts, Rachel. We're looking at 80 plus kilometers an hour in some of these gust fronts.
Yeah, Mark was mentioning earlier today that the winds really picked up ahead of the storms. So if you're feeling the winds picking up and start to howl, that could be an indication that something's coming your way. But I've highlighted those on our map here, Laura, the ones that you were mentioning, kind of popping up out of the blue. So areas like north of London, in through Stratford, be on the lookout for these systems to start to develop. They've only just kind of popped, but they are walking into some pretty good thunderstorm energy and a pretty favorable air mass to develop. So we could maybe see a severe thunderstorm watch pop up. It's still a little bit iffy at this time. Lots of lightning going on behind the system. So that's what's kind of telling me that our front is maybe perhaps pushed a little bit farther back. But we could maybe be seeing what's called a lake breeze boundary or just a convergence boundary there. Another cell is popping up in and around Wallaceburg. So we're going to be keeping a watch on where these systems kind of continue to spark for the next hour or two. They will continue to impact us in these locations, but moving eastwards as we head around the dinner hour and maybe even beyond.
Yeah, and the one thing of note is that although we have the smoke hindering the atmosphere a little bit, we saw some really hot temperatures, and there wasn't really a whole lot of hindering in terms of the humidity, the moisture in the atmosphere. So, you know, if these storms do get firing off, there won't be a whole lot to stop them from going.
No, let's have a look at where our risk map is as well, just to give the viewers an idea of where we're thinking these severe storms could track. So anywhere from Windsor, the Chatham-Kent region, all the way into Barrie. Barrie, you're going to want to watch out around the 6-7 o'clock hour as these storms continue to develop and also progress eastward. And then that does extend into Algonquin, Bancroft, and also parts of southern Quebec. And that's where we have our only severe thunderstorm watch up in effect at the moment. But we are expecting this to continue to develop. I know Mark is standing by by. And Mark, I wanted to ask you about these wind gusts, because winds are going to be a big factor for today. I just want to confirm with you that you noticed the winds picking up before the rainfall came through.
Oh yeah, actually, we really were noticing some significant wind gusts with that storm, especially earlier. We were just having surface flow, like surface winds, extremely strong. I found that was kind of amazing. And then we got closer to that as that roll cloud came through. That wind was just blasting. But I will admit I wasn't watching that. I wasn't paying that much attention because I was paying more attention to how much the temperatures had dropped. I did not realize how cold it was until I jumped out of the car and went, "What? Why is winter back?" Having said that, I know you were just talking about the storms up near Stratford and St. Mary's. What's very, very interesting about those storms is I can tell you what's happening with those ones. Those ones are firing on that outflow boundary, that big barf of cold air that came out of the storm that actually hit me, produced that roll cloud. That is literally, I'm just looking at my radar right here, that is that is a boundary that's setting off those storms. Now, if we sort of go back, follow that boundary all the way down towards the southwest, we can see another storm down near Wallaceburg that has actually been set off by the same boundary. So we're talking about a boundary that runs from Stratford, Listowel area all the way down to almost Chatham. And that is what's, beginning to set those storms off. So yeah, that's ones I'm sort of watching. Got Dr. David Sills, who quite literally in the last 10 seconds emailed or texted me, said that he thinks those ones up near St. Mary's, Stratford, actually may become severe. He sort of thinks those ones are the ones to watch over the next little while. Moving way too fast for me to catch up on those ones, so I may have to look down towards the Chatham one and see what that one's going to do.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mark. And yeah, just like we mentioned in the past, handful of minutes here, this is that boundary that Mark was talking about as the winds have kind of been pushed outwards. We're starting to get some convection in front of the cold front here. So there's that boundary from Wallaceburg all the way through to Stratford. These storms are continuing to progress a little bit faster than the boundary. Like we mentioned, the boundary is a bit more stationary, but these ones are continuing to push towards the east and northeast. So we'll continue to see what the next radar scan shows, but it does look like a beautiful view here of the gusty winds coming out of the front and beginning to get a little bit more convection and activity.
Yeah, we've got a video that Mark took earlier of what we're assuming is a roll cloud near Sarnia earlier this afternoon. Really interesting looking cloud, and this is, I believe, when he felt that really strong wind gust and the rapid temperature change that he's been mentioning was up near Huron shorelines. But this is quite a structure, not one you see too often.
No, the roll cloud is right ahead of the front, and that's where that warm and cold air are mixing along that boundary. We're starting to hear reports that winds are picking up in and around the Chatham-Kent region, which also makes sense. We'll be probably feeling gusty winds ahead of this boundary, so along areas that are highlighted in pink here. So expect those winds to continue to increase. And I think the more severe storms, like we were mentioning, were these ones here for St. Mary's. So St. Mary's through to Kitchener, expect some of your thunderstorm activity to really increase. So just want to highlight once again some of this thunderstorm energy. The most amount of thunderstorm energy we have currently is in those regions. So that outflow boundary is allowing for these storms to kind of eat up that thunderstorm energy and continue to develop. So we'll keep a watch on those.
Yeah, we could be seeing, like we mentioned earlier, the risks associated with this are going to be heavy downpours if you find yourself localized underneath one of these thunderstorm cells. Localized flooding can't be ruled out because, I actually noticed out at my parents near Elmira yesterday, the water levels were fairly low, actually, along the Grand River. So hopefully we don't get into flood criteria, but again, anticipate heavy downpours and those strong wind gusts accompanied with if you find yourself under one of these stronger thunderstorms.
Something really notable about this frontal system is it expands from Quebec all the way into Texas. So we're talking about 1,000 kilometers or so active weather boundary. It was over top of northern Ontario, which has hopefully helped mitigate the wildfire activity that we've been seeing for the past couple of weeks. But the smoke and the haze is still going to be in the forecast. We do have our air quality statements that are in effect, and you know, this is a national view, so they span from British Columbia all the way into northeastern Ontario. And if you're under one of these, that means you could be seeing some poor air quality. But here at home, we've seen the hazy skies, and it's definitely more elevated. So not looking at health risks, but we could be seeing some redder sunrises, redder sunsets, and the moon, in fact, even looked red out there a couple days ago.
Yeah, the haze is very evident, especially Sunday and through Monday. It was really, really evident. But this smoke is actually going to continue shifting with this system in through Atlantic Canada. We have a question here from YouTube. Will this be coming to the Maritimes, specifically Prince Edward Island? Starting with the smoke, this is already underway on the way to Atlantic Canada. It's going to be accompanied with this frontal system. You will be impacted on Thursday.
Yes, this cold front is going to continue to push the smoke farther east in the next couple of days, and then bringing with it all of the similar threats that we're seeing across Ontario. So the risk map for you out east is looking something like this. We've just updated this today, including Fredericton at this point in time, because the orientation of the frontal boundary has shifted a bit further south. So severe thunderstorms on tap for much of the Maritimes and parts of Quebec for Thursday afternoon and into the evening. Again, larger hail and the strong winds, very similar setup to what Ontario is seeing, is in the forecast around that dinner hour or just after for Fredericton. And we'll continue to watch that as the system continues to push east. That's where the focus of the severe thunderstorm potential is. But over in the GTA, we could still see some non-severe thunderstorms on Thursday.
Yeah, still a chance at heavy down, more widespread rain I was noticing in some of the models. So heavier downpours for Thursday morning, continuing throughout the afternoon. And that is actually going to shift south, as you see in the yellow, around the 401 corridor. GTA not out of that one on Thursday, but likely not going to see any kind of rumbles or lightning, in fact. But what we are seeing here is that this boundary that we're watching is likely going to continue to unzip, meaning it's going to continue to kind of convectively explode, and it's going to be the thing that's going to pump out the storms.
Yeah, so that's where we're going to be watching for these regions here. You can see it already developing on radar, the last two scans. So just over the Stratford area at the moment, north of London, will be making its way towards Kitchener, and we would assume that these storms probably look like very towering cumulus clouds. So the ones that go pretty tall up into the atmosphere, not picking up a heck of a lot of lightning just yet, but the radar is indicating that these are going to be dropping quite a bit of rain. If you're looking at this and you're not sure what all these colors mean, the more red and orange tones mean that it's heavier downpours. Once we get into that pink tone, Laura, that's where we're going to be talking about hail. And hail could be on tap for today as well.
Yeah, we're not seeing any crazy amounts or anything like baseball size or anything like that, but small hail is possible underneath these storms as they continue. The higher the storm, the larger it is in the atmosphere, the more space hail has to form. Hail forms by rotating in the storms, coalescing or attaching to other pieces of frozen precipitation, and then eventually gets falling out of the downdraft, out of the storm. So not a huge risk, but the main risks will be wind and rainfall, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw nickel-sized hail somewhere along this frontal system.
Yeah, that's the third one there on this list. So nickel-sized hail, it is into that severe criteria, just on the edge, but likely not doing the most amount of damage. I think what will be more damaging is the winds. Lots of dust and debris possibly circling as these systems continue to progress eastward. Here's a look at the current conditions across Ontario. Again, this boundary does expand into Quebec as well, where we do have a severe thunderstorm watch. But it's really interesting to note, folks that are ahead of this front are sitting in the 30s, and then folks behind the front on Lake Huron shores, temperatures have dropped quite significantly.
And this is pretty much the textbook version of two air masses kind of colliding. We've got the warm, humid air mass that was stuck over the Great Lakes Basin that's getting kind of pushed out by the cold front. Notice the temperature in Sudbury, 18 degrees in that cloud cover and rainfall. And then Toronto, St. Catharines, still in Windsor, 30 plus. So we're going to start to feel that drastic drop as Mark did shortly. Although we're not going to see a lot of those systems in the GTA, we will still feel the cold front approach.
Another thing that we're going to be looking at is the winds. Just having a look at the past 24-hour peak winds. These are just select few stations, certain airports. We're into that 50 kilometer per hour range, but locally expecting those to be a little bit higher, especially as that boundary continues to develop and push its way east. And let's see where exactly that is setting up. I'm just going to be playing out this here, and you can see right under that cold front north of London. I will take this off so we can get a better view.
There we go. Yep. Slowly seeing more reds pop in. Look at that line that just formed north of London. That's where we're starting to see the strongest convection pop off. But let's go quickly to a video of Mark earlier when he was in the warmth.
In the small town of Watford near Sarnia, there is what we call a mesoscale discussion just on the other side of the border in the U.S. They're talking about scattered severe thunderstorms. They probably won't put a watch out for it. They will be sort of keeping an eye on the storms. For now, though, we're just on the other side of the border from there, so we'll be watching as these storms begin to make their way into southern Ontario. It does look closer to somewhere between 4 to 7 o'clock. How strong those storms are going to be is going to be the big question. Front moving down, but I do expect some of those storms could have as much as 80 kilometer an hour gusts in it, and it's going to be a matter of getting to that storm. But the one thing I'm going to say is it's 30 degrees here, so the smoke not having much of an effect, a dimming effect. So there is a lot of energy, storm energy, ready to get going as those storms hit southern Ontario a little later on.
And all of that energy is exactly what this line of thunderstorms is walking into. So that's why we're thinking that this line here north of London is going to be the more severe thunderstorms we see today because they're the first ones. They're getting into that very well-developed environment that Mark was just discussing, and they're going to be eating up all that thunderstorm energy or thunderstorm juice, sucking it up, and then beginning to develop. We've seen that line really get a lot stronger the past maybe 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, we just got a new radar scan in that just jumped right over St. Mary's, just about to hit Stratford. So if you are in Stratford and you are feeling the strong wind gusts hit you, it's imminent. It's almost just near you. Milverton is almost in the wake of this as well. But as Mark mentioned, we didn't really see a lot of that deteriorating energy because of the heat that we got, the humidity. The smoke didn't really deter much of our energy, although we're only really sitting in the yellows for our thunderstorm energy. In severe cases, we'd expect the oranges or reds, but it's pretty widespread where we still have the chance to see some pretty impressive storms.
Yeah, that's what's kind of making this more of a marginal thunderstorm setup, but it is the first thunderstorm setup of I guess in the summer. It's finally felt like summer across southern Ontario, southwestern Ontario. We finally joined the 30-degree club. It's taken some time. Northern Ontario saw it but well before us. All across Western Canada saw it before us. But yes, we did hit 30.9 earlier this afternoon, officially the first 30-degree day of the year. So this is kind of feeling like that first summer severe weather setup for a lot of folks across Ontario.
Typical summer Ontario day. We've got our heat. I believe there was a humid index value of about 37 in Windsor today, which is just astronomically humid, almost hard to breathe when it gets like that. And of course, the storms to follow. Typical severe Ontario weather day. And yeah, this is a good look at what we've seen across stateside so far.
Yeah, lots of rainfall. You can see those reds and oranges are indicating some pretty heavy downpours. That is slowly starting to make its way into southern Ontario. We're seeing around 5 to 10 millimeters of rainfall underneath these storms. And it looks like we have Mark Robinson back on the move now. So Mark, where exactly are you headed? Did you make any decisions?
Yeah, I mean, it's been very tricky. I've been trying to, make a decision whether I go east or whether I go south. I'm going to try and for south because I think that's where the boundary is. Now, I'm watching this one storm down closer to Chatham, whether it's going to do anything. I actually think the better storms might be up near Kitchener, closer to my house. So I didn't actually need to go that far today, but right now I'm going to try to go down a little bit south and see if that storm's going to get going. But definitely if you're in the Stratford, St. Mary's area, Kitchener, Waterloo, those storms are headed towards you. And now, again, I'm going to put giant quotes around the word storm because I'm not seeing any lightning on those yet. But yeah, there is another sort of round of showers and heavy rain behind that. It has been a tricky forecast day, I can tell you that.
Yeah, it definitely has. We've been kind of scratching our heads here as well, mostly because we have a lot of different weather variables at play. So it's a little bit difficult to pinpoint who's exactly going to be seeing what. But we do have the location down pat, north of the 401 is where we do have the highest potential, and have a look at how these thunderstorms developed. I'm just going to do a little play-by-play. Here's where we saw that outflow boundary setting up. And then have a look, these are just a next handful of radar scans over top of the Stratford region. You can really see those deep reds, deep oranges, and this system is really starting to boom. So I'd expect winds to be really increasing out ahead of it. Kitchener, Woodstock. If you are in any of these regions and you're seeing a storm approach, feel free to tweet us with hashtag share your weather. We'd love to see what this system looks like on the ground. I would assume it would be more of like a shelf cloud in the horizon before it makes its way further east.
Yeah, as these smaller cells they started off as, slowly kind of turning into almost a line of storms at the gust front that kind of kicked out of the cold front. Now, different models had different outputs, I should say, as we were headed into this morning and afternoon. There were two areas, one being Windsor, Essex County, Leamington having that stronger signature, but then again up towards KW, Guelph, even up towards places like Orangeville, we're getting into some of that criteria as well, and it's looking like that one has won out, at least for currently. This is not to say that we won't see storms in southwestern Ontario.
Yes, we're going to keep a close eye on southwestern Ontario. We'll do a little bit of a forecast here for the Windsor area. These are just the last few scans of radar. So what we're seeing is our front is still a little bit back here, but once we get any sort of storms that develop in northern Michigan, those do have the chance to boom and pop and continue to make their way east. So I wouldn't say Windsor is completely out of the woods just yet. Maybe more of a evening threat for you as that boundary gets closer and closer towards your region. But here's that cell that we were talking about near Wallaceburg, continuing along this same outflow boundary. It'll be interesting to see if these areas do fill in and we get some intensification near London, but once again, yeah, these ones are the ones that we're going to be watching. I would assume we'd get some severe thunderstorm watches shortly, though like Mark mentioned, they don't have a heck of a lot of lightning associated with them. A lot of the lightning is actually back here where the stronger boundary and cold front is. I'm going to have a look and see if there's any updated wind gusts for London. No, still sitting at that 54, but again, I think locally speaking, that could probably be more.
Yeah, the thing with this is if you find yourself if that localized thunderstorm cell doesn't hit the, where are these recorded from? The radar site, I guess?
The airports,
The airports, right. If that cell doesn't pass directly over the airport, it's not going to register 70, 80 kilometer an hour gusts. So your reports are what we use a lot of the time, hashtag #ONStorm, hashtag share your weather, that we can use to show the public of what's actually going on the ground here, as Rachel alluded to earlier. But this system continues, as you mentioned, there's so much lightning behind this near Ethel, Fort Which, Clifford, closer to Huron shorelines. But again, that frontal system is just powering through with rain and wind.
This is something that you could maybe see out in front of the line. We were just mentioning what a shelf cloud is. So it's a very low hanging cloud that usually takes up the entire horizon, and it's where the warm air is being lifted and the cold air is descending out from the thunderstorm. A little bit different than the roll cloud that Mark showed, but if you do see this coming your way, you definitely want to get inside, maybe get off the roads. Mark, maybe you have a few tips for folks that could be seeing that outflow boundary coming to them.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I think I'm going to give everyone a tip right away is make sure you got your fleece handy. The temperature drop is substantial. Now, what is interesting is the temperatures are actually recovering back where I am. These storms do interesting things. You know, the computer models had, you know, the front sort of just sitting there, everything sort of sliding along the front. Instead, one of the things we got was that big outflow boundary that sort of came out of the storm and began to push fairly rapidly east. I'm just sitting at the side of the road here, so I'm just taking a quick look at the radar, and you just sort of see this line of storms running from Listowel all the way down to Stratford. And if you keep following that, it's down to London, Glencoe, and all the way down back towards Dresden, and that's, you know, sort of towards Chatham. So these storms often do weird things like this. So when you have what we call the outflow boundary, and which is basically a cold front, it's almost like a miniature cold front created by the storms. If that one gets out ahead of the main front, that can set off a whole bunch of storms, and that can really sap all the energy out of the atmosphere. And I think that's what we're seeing. So actually being able to catch up with these ones is going to be very tricky. And that is so often what happens when you're trying to chase a storm, when you're trying to get to them. You'll have these storms do weird things. And especially when you're talking about Southern Ontario, it always does weird things on me. So the big question for me right now is, do I sort of wait and watch for this other storm that's near Sarnia, the one that's down near Oil Springs? Do I try and catch up to that storm that's literally almost in Kitchener-Waterloo? And I think I'm gonna have to make the best of a bad situation and wait for the storms that are sort of behind the front. They're not able to really tap into the really good air that we've seen ahead of that outflow boundary, but they're still kind of, they're a little bit going. So I'm just crossing my fingers, and we'll see what we can do.
Well, it looks like on the latest radar scan, Mark, we're seeing a little cell just east of Sarnia, so you might actually be in a prime location to catch the next wave. But we do have a question for you. A viewer was wondering, and actually I'm kind of wondering this myself, how does the Niagara Escarpment drop-off affect atmospheric stability?
Ooh.
Right?
That's a really good question. And actually, it's not the drop-off that does it. It's actually the way the land rises from about London, and you sort of go up, and you sort of go up to the top of the escarpment. You'll often see storms as they begin to sort of hit Guelph region really start to get going. And that's simply because the rise in the landform, the escarpment itself, tends to push those storms up a little bit, and they can just get that little extra kick and really get going. When they cross over that, usually at that point there's not that much of a change, but it's really the biggest thing when it comes to Southern Ontario is the Great Lakes. Those lake breezes, they can really make a huge difference when it comes to how storms react, how storms get going. And it's something that we watch very, very closely, and that just happens to correspond quite often. The Lake Ontario lake breeze quite often corresponds with the escarpment. So you may see a bit of a change there. It's not because of the escarpment, it's actually because of the Lake Ontario breezes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. Those are things that you may not be thinking about when it comes to your forecast, all things we think about when we put your forecast together. Here's just a look at the elevation that Mark was talking about across the GTA. You know, we always think of elevation like, oh, BC's mountains or the mountainous terrain in Quebec, but we actually have quite a bit of elevation change from downtown Toronto all the way up north into Orangeville, where that Niagara Escarpment does have an effect. But like Mark mentioned, the Great Lakes, they are really big. I mean, I'm so used to them, but when people come to visit me from not Toronto, they are amazed with how big these lakes are, and they do have quite a bit of influence for our weather and in our weather forecast too.
Yeah, big drivers are the lakes surrounding Southern Ontario for our weather. Specifically, as Mark mentioned, how the air comes off the lakes. If we've got an easterly flow, we'll get super cool temperatures around the lake shores of Ontario. As we saw last month, I believe, we had some pretty strong lake breezes, as well as Huron coming off the other way is what creates our squalls in the winter, all that. So big influencer here. But we got another question.
Yes, we do. One of the viewers asked, will this storm clear out the smoke? So just taking a look at some of our smoke forecasts, it has been really hazy. Now, we did see our air quality drop a little bit, Laura, earlier this afternoon. And you've probably seen very red sunrises, sunsets, that sun having a very red tone. And you can really clearly see where that front would be right about here. So in behind it, we do have a bit of a fresher air mass, I would say, but I wouldn't say that the smoke completely leaves us. We will still be seeing some elevated smoke, maybe not at the same degree as what we saw earlier this week, but it's definitely still going to be there.
Yeah, I think we have that ON-AQ current going on. It's sitting at kind of an orangey, about a 3 or a 4 generally across southern Ontario, but places across the west are much higher. But here's a look at that. Those oranges are indicative of about a 4 out of 10 on the air quality scale. Sault Ste. Marie, much worse air quality, and out west we're at a 10 plus for places like Flin Flon and Manitoba. But yeah, as the frontal system passes through, we could see a bit of improving air quality. If you do suffer from lung illnesses or heart issues, this is good news for you that we could be breathing in some clear air.
Yeah, but what we will continue to see is poor air quality for areas that are going to be more so affected by the fires. We still have several hundred fires and large fires ongoing across central Saskatchewan and Manitoba, where we've been seeing heat and dry conditions, and a lot of that smoke is going to continue to pulse eastward throughout the weekend and into next week. So although we may get a little bit of a reprieve here, this will likely be still a theme for the next several weeks, if not kind of an ongoing theme throughout this summer. Let's go back and take a look at the radar now, Laura, because we've had some developments.
Yeah, and just in case EC does decide to put up any watches or warnings, the difference between a watch and a warning. So what should we use? Tacos?
Tacos. I like tacos.
Picture if you have all the ingredients ready to make your Taco Tuesday dinner, but you haven't made it all yet. All the ingredients are there, but the tacos aren't made yet. That's considered a watch. We have the ingredients present, the atmosphere is primed, but we're not there yet. We don't have any storms firing. So if you find yourself, if we do get a watch come up, just note that prepare yourself and stay alert, stay up to date on alerts. And when you find yourself in a warning, it is time to take action. You take cover from whatever system is headed your way. We're still not really seeing any kind of watches or warnings from Environment Canada yet, but we'll continue to keep appraised of any changes.
Yeah, we're continuing to look at the developing radar here. You can see the reds are just over Stratford and Listowel, continuing to move east. So Kitchener, Waterloo, you're up next. And we don't only have an update on radar, we now have an update with Mark. He's out of the car. Mark, what are you doing?
I'm getting hungry. You're talking about tacos, but you can sort of see the tacos are not particularly well made at this point. But what I did want to show you, and of course, you know, these situations changing so fast, I'm sort of looking right up at the sun there. You can actually see a little bit of the, excuse me, I sneeze when I look directly into the sun. That just, I'm one of those people. There's actually, you can see the updraft on this on the cell that we were talking that was coming out of Sarnia, and I'm just sort of watching for the base. I want to see where that base is, what it's doing. Nothing that you know, makes me go, uh-oh, we're in trouble. But I am seeing a little touch of structure, and I got to admit, I'm loving that, because that means we are coming into summer severe storm season. This is sort of the first potential that we've got for you know, good storms, because we had the 30-degree temperatures earlier today, and all the ingredients there. I think somebody might have fumbled the taco though.
Somebody dropped the taco or forgot the cheese.
Somebody
I
dropped.
not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Mark is anxiously anticipating summer severe weather. As we mentioned, Mark, this is kind of the first summer severe weather day, if we can really call it that. We'll see how these storms continue to move in the next hour or so, because they are picking up some steam.
Yeah, they absolutely are. What would you say the speed of the system is moving? It's not an 80 or 90 kilometer an hour squall line, But these did pass over Stratford in the last 20 minutes or so, so it's a decently quick mover. As Mark has mentioned, from KW, we're sitting at about 25 kilometers away from Kitchener. That was the last radar scan, though, about 10 minutes ago. So about 20 kilometers away from the KW area. It has since passed over Stratford, St. Mary's. You're now kind of on the backside of that initial line, not to say you won't see anything else today. And then we are starting to see a little bit more of convectiveness kind of bubble up across the St. Clair, Sarnia, Oil Springs region down further south.
Yeah, so right now is prime time commuting hour, Laura. So if you're along the 402 in and out of Sarnia, and also the 401 into London, you're likely seeing some showers. But closer to the GTA, if you're planning on heading out, the sooner, I would say, the better, because this, as Laura mentioned, that outflow line, that red line you see from Mount Forest to Stratford, that's moving a lot faster than the actual front itself. So that could be impacting us, like you said, up Highway 6 in through Guelph, Highway 10 in through Orangeville, and eventually that's going to make its way to the 400. I would anticipate Barrie and the 400 getting into this around our 5:30, 6 o'clock hour. So if you can get on your commute now and get home before then, I mean, I hope traffic's not too terrible. That would likely be ideal. Another thing we were talking about, Laura, was that this is not really a GTA story, but a lot of folks work in the GTA and then commute back northwards. So even though we might not see this rainfall until maybe overnight or Thursday morning, it's still going to be quite problematic for those on the road.
Yeah, I know many people who travel for work up and down the 400, the 404, even out west and east. As you mentioned, it's going to be bigger impacts for the closer to Lake Ontario shorelines tomorrow, but it's looking like this could scoot north of the GTA, Rachel. If this continues on its pattern, it could just north of the 401 corridor. So Brampton north, maybe up towards Nobleton, Oak Ridges, maybe towards Uxbridge.
Yeah,
those
maybe
higher.
even Newmarket as well. I would think between Barrie, Newmarket, and again, those are very big population centers. With that outflow, we'll see if that outflow can keep its integrity as it continues to move east. But these are the areas that we've been kind of watching, that orange region. So that could include areas like Brampton, Newmarket, Innisfil, and that could be really get going in the next hour or so. So if you are on the move, it's definitely good to keep a watch on that.
There's a question from Aurelia, if Aurelia will be in these storms. I don't know if we can zoom in on the up towards Georgian Bay shorelines, potentially seeing. But this again will be later for you guys. Barrie and northward, south, kind of in that region by Lake Simcoe. It'll be closer to that 6, maybe even later hour.
Yeah, as you can see here, it does look like the Barrie region, the 400, will be getting into some of that showery, heavy downpour condition. But as you mentioned, Laura, it is closer to that 6 p.m. hour. So as we get further and further away into the evening, we are going to be looking at less severe potential. So the severe thunderstorm potential. As the day goes on, we do lose some of that thunderstorm energy.
And what we lose a lot of is the daytime convective heating. We've had the sun, although limited by the smoke layer, a lot of that contributes to the energy at the surface. So once the sun sets, we generally lose. We do have nocturnal storms. We've seen a few already this year, but it does tend to decrease the amount of thunderstorm energy present. So let's go back to Mark. It's looking a little bit darker behind you, Mark.
Yeah, actually, this is almost a storm. Like, this is very exciting to me. It's almost a storm as the sun comes out and just shows, there's a little bit of a base. Now, I want to take you, and Dave, sorry, you came back to me for a second. If we take you over here, see where the base is on that storm. That storm's actually fairly, what we call a fairly high base on that one. And that's because one of the ingredients that I noticed was missing today was the moisture. We needed just a little bit more moisture in that lower part of the atmosphere. Now, that's not usually a problem when it comes to southern Ontario. Usually we have The opposite problem, too much moisture, and you can't see anything because everything's going up, and you can see cloud everywhere. That's the usual thing for southern Ontario. Once in a while, we'll have everything balanced so we can see absolutely beautiful storms on a fairly long distance. But everything has to be perfectly balanced. As we were talking about earlier, the taco has to be made perfectly. Right now, not so much. So we can tell, though, that because those bases just a little higher up, that does tell me as a meteorologist and a chaser that we're missing that moisture. We're missing that one ingredient that we really need to get these storms going. Having said that, what you can sometimes have is first storms go through, put a little bit of moisture on the ground, get ready for the second round, but we also need that heat at the same time. So all of these very complicated things we need to happen all at once. And today it's a little off, but it's getting there. I'm trying. I've got my fingers crossed that these will do something. Now, I will warn you, if this produces a lightning bolt, I will freak out.
That is totally fair. And Mark, while we still have you, I do have a pretty interesting question because there are a lot of lightning strikes, but in behind that gust front, could you maybe talk about why maybe you're not seeing the lightning strikes on that convergence boundary, but we are seeing it behind, kind of along Lake Huron shores?
Yeah, honestly, I think that one area, and if you look on radar, you can sort of see the outflow boundary sort of, doing this, and the lightning is sort of right up in here. So my guess is we're just have a little bit more lift there. Those storms are getting a little higher and a little bit more able to produce greater amounts of hail in the upper part of the storm. Hail is absolutely critical to producing lightning. So a little bit of hail, a little bit of that ice crystal separating that charge, and you'll actually have lightning. So that's what I'm assuming is going on there. The storms down here not getting as high tops, so they're struggling a little bit to try and produce enough of a separation of charges to get the lightning. So that is kind of my thing. However, if this one just gets up a little bit more, we actually might get a little bit of lightning. We will see. I'm trying to get it going.
Mark.
Similar with hail, though, too, eh?
Yes, that's why hail, we weren't expecting it to be as severe, kind of on that edge, mostly because we're lacking that updraft that Mark was trying to force himself and doing a great job at it. But that's why we have more lightning back behind that convergence zone that we were talking about, which, by the way, Laura, has already progressed quite nicely in and around the Kitchener region. So we're looking at Kitchener, Fergus, up to Shelburne, probably seeing some darker skies, Orangeville as well. Something that I wanted to highlight was just how long that gust front is. So let me actually just pause it here. And we're going down all the way kind of to London, so we're already stretching over 100 kilometers per hour, or 100 kilometers rather. But this does go back all the way to Chatham too. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here is the winds. The winds were definitely something that we were mentioning. Kind of the setup that we have is this stagnant boundary backed over Lake Huron, and then the winds are kicking out right in front of it, and that's what's causing lift. And that's what's causing these thunderstorms to develop. So these ones are going to be the very heavy downpours, probably the more severe storms that we'll be seeing for today, though we do not have any severe thunderstorm watches or warnings out at the moment, except over in Quebec with that yellow highlighted region there. We'll also be watching along the backside of these storms, like Mark was mentioning, some of these pop-up cells in and around Sarnia. That's where that stronger forcing is. But let's talk about that stronger forcing for a second, Laura, because it is a really stagnant boundary. So we saw it kind of backed over Lake Huron around our 2 p.m. hour. It's slowly going to sag a bit farther south around that 5-6 o'clock hour. But it's really not moving as we head into the overnight.
No, it's almost becoming almost stationary or stuck over southern Ontario. That's what's going to allude to the potential flood risk and heavy downpours. Also could be seeing a bit of wind damage along with that as well. But yeah, that's what's also bringing us the continued risk tomorrow, and eventually it will move in through Quebec and Atlantic Canada.
And it looks like we have Mark standing by. Mark, maybe tell us a little bit about what you're hoping to see, maybe even what you saw. Did you see a lightning strike? Did we?
It produced a lightning strike.
Yes.
One lightning strike. So
think I
yay!
just
I didn't see it though,
saw
so I can't really. I saw it on the radar, so it's not quite what I wanted, but at least it's a thunderstorm, so it's now officially a storm. So that is that's a good thing for me. Probably also a good thing for the farmers and anybody who's gardening, just because when you don't have a really good organization, and you can tell when you don't have good organization when you look here and you kind of go, I can't really see anything. As Dave said, it kind of looks fuzzy. That's not a good thing when you want, convective severe storms to show you, to really have the strong winds, large hail, et cetera, but these ones, great for farmers, will produce, get some good watering on the crops, a little bit of irrigation there. We've had a lot of rain so far, but get a couple of nice warm sunny days in the last little while, a little bit of rain down, some more sunny days after this, and it's great for the farmers, not so good for the storm chasers. But I like eating, so I'm gonna be happy for the storm. As I said, it is a storm.
It is.
I'm
indeed.
very happy about that.
And we're happy to have had you, Mark. Thank you so much for all of your outdoor insight and all your tips. And we'll continue to track these storms throughout the evening.
Yeah, just going off of what Mark was mentioning, if you're thinking about what is going to be going on for the next week or so, we are going to be looking at a continuation of some rainfall across the GTA. Although you may not see it today, you will be seeing that tomorrow as we head throughout Thursday. Probably not a great golf day in my opinion, but have a look at the weekend. I mean, more seasonal than what we've seen, and chance for sun and clouds. So, hey, we'll take it. The first weekend of June, not looking like a bad one. The active weather may return as we head into our next work week. But let me take you through kind of our forecast, what we're expecting for the next few hours. We will be anticipating these thunderstorms to continue to move eastwards. Barrie going to be seeing some heavy downpours. Orillia, as we mentioned, Orangeville possibly too. And then they will be east of you by around that 7:30, 8 o'clock hour, continuing into Bancroft and parts of Quebec. That boundary is still going to be sitting over top of us through the overnight. So you can see most of southern Ontario, southwestern Ontario, including the GTA, getting a good watering overnight. And then we'll see more of that as we head into Thursday morning and afternoon. Maybe a little bit more intense with the rainfall at that time. But again, it's that lack of movement, that boundary that's going to just be over top of us for the next 12, maybe 24 hours before we do clear up into a more clear skies, but also clearing out the haze.
Yeah, that would be quite nice to see the sun again in its normal state. But as you've mentioned, we're going to see more widespread rain, so the plants will get a nice watering overnight. But then we get into the, are we getting too much rain? We'll have to kind of track locales to see who gets a lot of rainfall and who doesn't. But GTA, just prepare yourself, especially potentially the drive to work and home from work could be a little dicey with the amount of water on the roadways. We all know how well the 400 series drains water. So yeah, we're going to keep a close eye on that. But again, this risk shifts eastward continually for Thursday with the severe moving in through portions of the Gaspésie, Eastern Townships, and New Brunswick.
Yeah, we'll be looking at possibly Fredericton and Moncton's first 30-degree day of the year because all this same air mass is just going to be shifting over to you and also bringing the risk for some severe thunderstorms as well. With all of the same criteria, some strong winds and larger hail is going to be on tap as we head throughout the east. So severe thunderstorm watches and warnings, only one watch out in effect for Quebec. It has been there for quite some time, but that does not mean you're not going to be seeing any activity across southern Ontario. There's that cell that Mark saw a lightning strike on, but as you can see, this is our outflow boundary continuing to make its way closer to the 400 up the Highway 6 north of Guelph and also Highway 10 north of Orangeville.
Yeah, just going back to the Quebec, we do have a viewer wondering if there will be storms in the Gatineau area today, but I don't believe they're in the watch.
I don't believe that they're in the watch, and the latest, wherever I put this, the boundary will be more so north of Ottawa. So we'll maybe be seeing some showery activity as we head more so into Thursday, but a lot of that activity is more so located across southern Ontario at that point in time.
Yeah, and Nickel Belt, Cottage Country could get into a storm or two this evening, throughout the overnight even potentially. So if you are up at the cottage, which I'm sure most of us wish we could be, just keep a close eye on.
Yeah, having a look at what rainfall we can expect, the heaviest amounts are going to be, like we mentioned, across southwestern Ontario, where that boundary is going to be stuck overnight. Again, bringing some beneficial rainfall, but it could maybe bring in 20 to 30 millimeters for the Windsor-Sarnia area. Toronto could be in that 10 to 20 millimeter range as the system slowly progresses.
Yeah, we have reports on X of Collingwood getting some pretty heavy downpours, and wow, that is some pretty heavy rainfall. We'll hopefully be able to share these videos later with you, but there's that system. Still 30 in Muskoka though, so we'll slowly start to see that cool down.
Yeah, you've already seen it cool down significantly in London at 23, so that's almost a 7 to 10 degree decrease once that outflow winds came through. Yep. So we'll expect that to be the similar case for folks in the Waterloo and Kitchener area. So gear up for that. If you do take any photos of what this storm looks like, definitely tag us and hashtag share your weather or hashtag ONStorm. We'll be quite happy to see it because I feel like it does have a little bit more structure than what Mark was seeing.
I agree, especially this line from the Dundalk Highlands, Orangeville area, all the way down to London now. Passing through Elmira, I'm going to have to hit up the family for see if they got any videos. But again, impacts to Highway 6, Highway 10 will continue and eventually in through the 400 and 404.
Yeah, it does look like we still have a little bit of thunderstorm energy for the next hour or so. So again, continue to watch these progress as we continue. So again, once they are developing, they'll continue to move towards the east and northeast. So again, Barrie, the 400, Highway 10, Highway 6, be on the lookout for that. As Laura mentioned, we did see some video on X with very heavy downpours. So if you are stuck in one of those, definitely drive slowly, leave lots of room. And if you're a bit unsure, just pull off. They will continue to progress further east.
Yeah, so, turn around, downtown kind of situation here.
Exactly.
Could see some water pooling and ponding on roadways. Again, stay up to date on all your alerts. We'll be here in office continuing to update and go live if necessary. But thanks for watching, and we'll continue our active weather coverage throughout the rest of the afternoon and the evening.